Now, from WYDC TV, this is Big Fox News at 10.
Tonight, the Elmira City School District is facing another lawsuit, this time for negligence, after the family of a disabled student says she was raped and impregnated on school property. Big Fox's Matt Kleindienst breaks down the lawsuit and the district's recent high-profile struggles.
Good evening, and the lawsuit alleges the Elmira City School District failed to supervise a developmentally disabled student, resulting in her being raped. The details you're about to hear in the story may be disturbing. The grandparents of an Elmira High School student have filed a negligence lawsuit against the school district after an alleged rape that resulted in a pregnancy. The student, referred to as Judy Doe, is developmentally disabled and was required to be supervised by an adult on school property. The lawsuit alleges Judy Doe was raped multiple times by a male student on school grounds between June and October 2019. During the October incident, the vice principal allegedly walked in on Judy being raped and notified her grandmother. Doctors later discovered Judy was pregnant and she gave birth in February 2020. The lawsuit claims the school district left Judy unsupervised, making her vulnerable to the attacks. This is the second time the school district was accused of negligence this month. Earlier this month, two former students accused a former teacher of sexual assault. I reached out to the school district for comment, however, I did not hear back. The case will be first presented in court on February 22nd. Matt Kleindienst, Big Fox, WYDC in Corning.
A woman is in custody after leading police on a high-speed chase Thursday night. According to police, Megan Marsh was allegedly in possession of a stolen car. After failing to pull over, Marsh took off into Athens, PA before crossing back into New York. Marsh surrendered to police after the car broke down along I-86. She was taken in by Tioga Sheriff's deputies, but will be transferred to Painted Post to face additional charges. A bridge collapsed this morning in Pittsburgh near Frick Park, causing several vehicles and a bus to crash down into a ravine. 10 people were hurt and 3 of them were taken to a hospital. All of those injuries were minor, and some of them were first responders who slipped and fell, according to officials. There were 3 to 4 vehicles on the bridge when it collapsed. Crews had to rappel down the ravine about 100 feet to rescue some people. It's unclear if anyone was under the bridge at the time of the collapse.
Our EMS Bureau set up for rescue. They have the heavy rescue units here. The technicians rappelled down using ropes to go down over the side. They helped the firefighters that were here initially on scene, also did like a daisy chain with hands, just grabbing people and pulling them up. So it was a physical rescue, most of them are, but we have some highly skilled and highly trained professionals on the job here.
President Biden visited that bridge today that collapsed. The president was already scheduled to visit Pittsburgh to talk about strengthening the nation's infrastructure, including rebuilding roads and bridges. Friends, family, and fellow officers gathered this morning to remember a New York City police officer who was killed last week. NYPD officer Jason Rivera was celebrated at a mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan. Today's funeral was open only to invited guests, but the public was invited to pay tribute as Officer Rivera's remains were taken to a cemetery in Westchester County. Rivera was 22 years old and recently married. He was barely into his second year on the force when he and his partner, Officer Wilbert Mora, were fatally wounded during a domestic call in Harlem.
Today I'm still in this nightmare that I wish I never had, full of rage and anger, hurt, and sad, torn. Although I gained thousands of blue brothers and sisters, I'm the loneliest without you. I know you're looking at me and beside me telling me I could do this, and I'm trying. Trust me, I am.
Officer Mora's viewing and funeral will take place at St. Patrick's next Tuesday and Wednesday. Public health officials are renewing their calls for booster shots as an Omicron subvariant emerges. CDC data show about 50% of fully vaccinated Americans have yet to receive their shot. The number of boosters given out each day has fallen from more than 1 million people in December to about half that. Public health officials are ramping up calls for the extra dose as the virus continues to evolve. Pfizer and Moderna are both now working on Omicron-specific vaccines.
That is why We announced as well that we have started to develop this Omicron-specific vaccine, and our aim is to have that ready really by the middle of the year so that we can start giving it to people in the fall of 2022.
Meanwhile, scientists continue to monitor a new version of Omicron. The subvariant BA2 accounts for nearly half of all COVID cases in Denmark. Here in the U.S., roughly 100 cases have been reported. Russia and NATO continue their intense standoff over Ukraine, but there are growing signs that a political solution will eventually be reached to end the crisis. Steve Harrigan has more from Ukraine.
The military standoff continues here in Ukraine as the diplomats get to work on de-escalation. On Friday, the U.S. ambassador to Russia confirming the U.S. has offered counter-proposals to Moscow's demands, signaling a willingness to discuss missile deployment and troop drills in Eastern Europe. Russian officials are calling that a win, saying they've been asking for dialogue on those issues for years without success, until they started amassing troops on Ukraine's border. There is no movement on the main sticking point, Ukraine's possible entry into NATO. But Russia claims it has no plans to invade unless it is provoked.
There won't be a war as far as it depends on Russia. We don't want a war, but we won't let our interests be rudely trampled on and ignored.
German intelligence is reporting Russia is prepared to invade, but has not yet made a final decision. The U.S. has threatened crippling sanctions if Russian troops cross the border, and some European officials are floating the idea of canceling a major natural gas pipeline between Russia and Germany.
An invasion that entailed sanctions would immediately put pressure on Europe, which has stronger trade ties with Russia, as well as energy imports from Russia.
Meanwhile, tensions remain high in border towns and cities, with Ukrainian troops hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
We have hopes for a better future. If it would be necessary, we will fight back, but we really hope there will be no attack.
Kremlin officials say the next steps will be decided by President Putin. In Kiev, Ukraine, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
Still ahead tonight, major overhauls in the works to help get America's education system back on track after nearly 2 years of the pandemic.
It's our moment to finally make education the great equalizer, the force that can help every student thrive.
More on the strategies to help kids get the most out of school and set them up for success.
Here's your local stock market update from Big Fox. Now, your Twin Tiers forecast from Big Fox.
Tonight's Big Fox forecast is brought to you by William Mattar. Good evening, everyone. Temperatures in some areas are actually a little bit warmer today than they were yesterday. Corning and Elmira reporting temperatures that were about 2 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. However, as we move into tonight, Arctic air will start to sink southward, and so that means it is going to be quite cold as we head into early tomorrow morning. We do have a wind chill advisory in effect until early tomorrow, and that includes everybody in our viewing area. And this is what it's going to feel like. For tonight, temperatures will be mainly in the single digits. I think our overnight low will be around 1 degree, but this is what it's going to feel like if you factor in even a slight breeze at 6 o'clock in the morning. Our wind chills will be between 19 to 20 degrees below zero. So very dangerous wind chills as we head into early tomorrow morning. During the day, it's going to continue to be bitterly cold, but the good news is by the end of the weekend, we are expecting a warming trend, but we have another system that will bring the possibility of snow, and I'll show you that in your 7-day forecast. In the meantime, we do have a nor'easter moving northeast along the coast or just off the coast in the Atlantic. That will not affect our weather. What will affect our weather is that blast of Arctic air that's going to keep us in the deep freeze during the day on Saturday. Again, we're going to start off in the single digits. By lunchtime, only 11 degrees, 13 degrees by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll be back into the single digits by mid-evening. So on Sunday, that cold air will linger. Temperatures will be below normal. So I think we are going to enjoy some sunshine for the first half of the day, and then clouds will start to increase in the evening hours. There could be a few flurries flying around some of our hometowns as well. And then we have a bigger storm system coming in for the middle of next week, and it will spread some snow across the Twin Tiers as we head from Wednesday into Thursday. Out ahead of it, though, warm air will surge northward, and so it is going to be a lot warmer for the middle of next week, and there could be some rain across our area as well, cold rain at that. Tonight, overnight lows will be around 1 degree. Wind chills will be down to -20. Tomorrow, highs around 13 degrees. It's going to be very cold, and it will be very brisk. We warm up to around 32. Finally, at the freezing mark on Monday, 39 on Tuesday. Rain and snow chances Wednesday into Thursday, and possibly even into Friday, but that cold air will be back by the end of the week, and that will switch our rain to snow.
Family members say their son's heart is in such bad condition it can't work on its own. But he doesn't qualify for a heart transplant because he hasn't yet gotten the COVID-19 vaccine. Ashley Stromier has more on why medical officials say hospital policies denying organ transplants make sense.
No one ever wants to see their child go through something like this.
My son is going to the edge of death to stick to his guns.
The family of 31-year-old DJ Ferguson says Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston is denying their son a heart transplant. This after he refused to get a COVID-19 vaccine. DJ's mother claims her son is not against vaccines, but says he's worried about possible side effects from the shots after having suffered serious blood clots in the past.
He just wants clarification or proof that it would not harm him, and they cannot provide that information.
There have been reports of some blood clots and some inflammation from vaccines, but far less blood clots and inflammation than what happens when you get COVID.
Brigham and Women's Hospital says the COVID-19 vaccine is one of many shots required for organ transplant candidates, with others including ones for the flu and hepatitis B.
It's been a policy for transplant programs for many, many years that patients receive vaccines before they get transplanted.
The availability of organs for transplants are limited. On its website, Brigham and Women's Hospital says about half of the more than 100,000 candidates waiting for transplants will not get an organ within 5 years.
Organs are scarce. We're not going to distribute them to someone who has a very poor chance of living when others who are vaccinated have a much better chance post-surgery of surviving.
Brigham and Women's Hospital has declined to comment on DJ Ferguson's situation due to medical privacy laws.
Major overhauls are in the works to get America's education system back on track after nearly 2 years of the pandemic. Kevin Cork has more on the strategies being put in place to help kids get the most out of school and set them up for success.
Our children cannot wait any longer. They've suffered enough.
Drastic times call for drastic measures. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona says now is the nation's chance to reimagine how schools operate by improving the way students are taught and expanding critical services to promote academic development.
It's our moment to finally make education the great equalizer, the force that can help every student thrive.
The Education Department announcing Thursday 4 areas of focus for 2022, including closing learning gaps, increasing pandemic recovery efforts, creating more affordable and inclusive college opportunities, and working to help make sure those pursuing higher education land a job in their chosen field.
So much fun!
Addressing students' mental health also a priority, with federal health officials reporting increased rates of depression and anxiety among school-age kids throughout the pandemic.
We must make up for lost time. Our schools must offer increased access to mental health supports for students, wraparound programs, meaningful and authentic parent and family engagement.
Going forward, schools are also being urged to offer a minimum of 30 minutes of tutoring 3 days a week for every student falling behind in their studies because of the pandemic.
Supply chain issues continue to plague America from coast to coast, and the Federal Reserve Chair doesn't see things improving anytime soon. Ashley Webster has more from the Port of Savannah.
We're not making much progress.
Despite White House claims, the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, says little progress is being made in freeing up the supply chain.
The share of goods in stock at stores is 89% now, which has barely changed from the 91% before the pandemic. I often see empty shelves being shown on television. 89% are full, which is only a few points below what it was before the pandemic. But our work's not done.
Inflation rates are hitting their highest levels since the 80s, leaving businesses struggling with higher operating costs and Americans frustrated with the impact on their wallets. The Biden administration saying that it believes the supply chain crisis will resolve itself in the second half of this year. But Powell has a different opinion.
I would not say that I would expect the supply chain issues to be completely worked out by the end of this year. What I would say, and I have been saying, is that I expect progress to be made in the second half of this year mainly.
Until then, the cost of getting goods from across the world continues to be extremely high. Container freight rates globally up 140%. Asia to the West Coast up 250%. And Asia to the East Coast up 184%. Increased demand is creating port congestion. In places like the Port of Savannah, conditions are improving. But areas like Long Beach, California, continue to experience a backlog of up to hundreds of ships still waiting to come into port. So what does this mean for Americans? Well, you can expect high prices for a while to come.
A major tool maker recalls one of its power products over potential startup and shutdown failure issues. Dewalt is recalling 8,000 of its DWCS 600 18-inch and 15-amp corded chainsaws. The chainsaws could start up when first plugged in, or could remain running when the switch is set to the off position, risking potential injury. The saws were sold in June through November of 2021. Dewalt will send return shipping labels to buyers and will replace them for free. A nationwide blood shortage is bringing about new calls not just for blood, but for the FDA to allow all gay and bisexual men to be allowed to donate. Zach Sauce has more.
You know, it's something that needs to change.
California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara addressing an FDA rule banning gay or bisexual men who've had sex with other men in the last 3 months from donating blood.
Just clearly, simply just a discriminatory act that really no longer stands the test of time, and that science tells us does nothing to keep our blood supply safe.
A restriction that started out as a lifetime ban on gay men at the height of the AIDS epidemic in 1983 eventually loosened over the years.
This is a very antiquated rule to say that people who are at risk for HIV can't give blood. We absolutely know how to screen blood. So I'm hoping that the FDA will listen.
And a policy infectious disease expert, Dr. Monica Gandhi, who has long studied the virus, says serves no other purpose than to reinforce the stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS.
To be honest, I think it's completely discriminatory to make the assumption that anyone who is gay is fundamentally at risk for HIV at every moment.
The San Francisco AIDS Foundation also backing Commissioner Lara's call on the FDA to drop its rule.
It literally is a homophobic relic of the past.
Russell Roybal began donating blood at age 17, signing up at his high school.
I had to stop because I had to make a choice if I was going to tell the truth about who I was or be able to continue to give blood, right? There's a huge blood shortage in California.
A blood shortage the American Red Cross says is among the worst they've seen.
We are absolutely facing a crisis. We want to make sure that we always have a 3 to 5 day supply of blood on hand. And right now, we just don't.
And in a statement, the Red Cross adding in part, quote, donation eligibility should not be determined by methods that are based upon sexual orientation, leaving Commissioner Lara wondering why the FDA isn't listening.
Research shows that approximately more than 300,000 more people would donate if this rule were not in place, and roughly enough to save lives of over 1 million people. I mean,
We want to leave you with a smile tonight. A hot sauce company is looking to make an NFT that people can eat. Frank's Red Hot announcing it will launch a spoof cryptocurrency called Bonecoin. In a press release, the company explaining fans can accumulate the digital coins by taking pictures of leftover bones from chicken wings and then uploading them to bonecoin.com. The fan who's able to build up the largest collection of this hot sauce themed coin will win an actual NFT. The company will also produce an edible replica of the NFT, which would be awarded to the winner. The promotion will run through the end of the Super Bowl on February 13th. Good luck. From our whole team, thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great night.